This, now we're at the car park of Norsaka, which is the North Staffordshire Afro-Caribbean Association, and they allowed us to meet here. It was very kind of them, so we could start here because we couldn't start across the road there. It was all boarded up at the time. Now it's open, but it was all boarded up and we couldn't actually get access to it. The police advised us not to start there. Also, these car parks here were going to be used. So on police advice, we started here, which was good. And one of the organisers with me, Alan Gerard, Alan's the eternal pessimist. Oh, nobody's going to turn up. Oh, you know, we went everywhere around the city gathering support. Putting our point of view, we had vote after vote, and we decided it was not going to be a political rally at all. So, you know, it wasn't going to be the Labour Party or the Tories, or it was going to be, no political banners were allowed at all. It was just a group of people, and we had people I know from the far right, we had people from the far left, we had people from the centre, we had people who had no political affiliation at all, that were just fed up with the council wasting money. And this ridiculous move from Stoke to Hanley with the council offices. The only people who abused that, and if I'd have seen it I'd have stopped it at the time, but I was at the front of the queue, the only people who abused that were UKIP. They bought a banner, and apparently they put it up 2 or 3 times, which is very offensive and very rude. And it was not, when I complained to their local organiser, Mick Harold, he said we didn't know anything about it. Yes, you did. Everybody knew about it. We had votes and arguments online about it. No political banners. So, you know, we started here, and a few of us turned. There was about 10, 15 of us to start with, you can imagine. And then there was 30. And then there was 50. And then there was 250. And the next thing you know, according to the police figures, I didn't actually count them, but according to the police figures, there was 1,000 people. According to the council's figures, they were obviously spying on us somewhere, they said there was 650. Whatever it was, that was still the biggest march this city's seen, including the poll tax march in the 1980s and the supporting the miners' march in the 1980s. So it was still the biggest march, even if it was only 650. And 650 people marching on a cold February day, that's a pretty big gig for something that took us 6 weeks to organise. We went to every town in the city. We didn't keep it just to Stoke. We held meetings in churches, in pubs, in community centres, wherever we could, to gather interest. And people were interested, and they came out because it was enough. And through our march, things did change. We didn't get everything we wanted. I don't think anybody ever does, but we did. They did change, and they had to rethink their policies because they could see that the public was not behind them. So walk on a bit now. I was here with, like I say, there was 1,000 people. So how were we here? Well, I've told you. We had these virtual meetings. It was a conversation between 2 people that escalated to include half a dozen others and then a dozen others, and it was online, and I can't even remember who said, well, instead of having just a virtual march, let's have a real one. I honestly can't remember who said that. Might have been me, it might have been someone else, it might have just come out of the conversation, but it was decided we were going to have one, and we chose a date, when Stoke were away, because we didn't want to crash with the crowds and things like that, you know. And people came out, and it was incredible. It was a freezing day, it really was, absolutely numbing day. But you're warmed by the presence there, you know. And the queue, we started the actual march. The police were excellent, by the way. You know, people complain about the police, but the police were absolutely fantastic. And they marshalled it properly. They stopped the traffic flow and everything. And if you go back, standing here, where we are now, this here was the head of the march, and the back of it was still on the car park, and we were 5 and 6 deep, you know. So you can see there was a hell of a lot of what's that? That's about 105 yards, 110 yards, something like that. We've marched, and you know the traffic wasn't here and everything like that. And we began. I had a loudspeaker. But there were banners, there were all sorts of things, like I said, and we came up. Now, we wanted to march straight down the road here, right, all the way down here, but the police said because of the traffic issues under the railway bridge, would we please, and they were they didn't insist, they asked us nicely and we agreed, could you please come down the college road side? So we did. We wanted to go where as many people were living as possible, and to be fair, there's hardly anybody on College Road, so we marched around here. We had to keep stopping every 100 yards or so because you've got the, you've got the elderly, you've got people with children and pushchairs, you've got a couple of people in wheelchairs and stuff like that. So we came down College Road, past the St Mark's Church here, and we marched at a very, this is quite fast for where we were going, because it's 1,000 people, you've got to march at the pace of the slowest person. And somebody joined the march in a, oh dear, what was it called? The scooters, the disability scooters, and had to unfortunately abandon the march halfway through because of the terrain. But they came along, it was really, it's wonderful. Everybody that we could think of, all parts of society were there. There were all races. There weren't many ethnic minorities, I have to be truthful, but there were all races, there were all ages. We had babies there, we had the middle-aged, the young, the elderly. We had all sorts of people. We had political activists. We had people who'd never been on a march in their lives, who'd never protested against anything. We had people who just fed up. As I said before, from all walks of the political spectrum. And they were just cheesed off. These are derelict factories. Well, that's actually being used now for a variety of things. But here, this was just mugs, I think it was called. So millions of, that's only produced mugs, but millions of mugs, millions. And we watched down here, just in front of us, what another 200 yards there, is Hanley Park. And that we kind of, again, the police were really good. There wasn't a lot of traffic at that particular point. They stopped people. They stopped the road for us, stopped traffic for us rather, so we could cross the roads. And the people we were chanting, one or two were singing. I don't know. I was at the front. I don't quite catch what they were singing, but it was a very friendly, fun atmosphere. And whilst it was a serious point we were making, we also made it very clear at all the rallies we held, well, not rallies is too strong a word, at all the meetings we went to and invited people to, we said very clearly, we don't want the council abused. That isn't why we're there, because there's good people on the council, it's not just the people at the top. Because the council generally, that wasn't our complaint, it was the council leadership and their gung-ho, who gives a toss about anybody else's opinion attitude. And that was what we were really angry about. But of course the move made a massive difference, and making the difference into Stoke, killing the town off basically. And they said no, that isn't going to happen. Of course it was, moving 2,000 people, and they kept saying it'll bring more jobs, but it wasn't bringing more jobs, it was transferring jobs from one part of the city to another. That's not more jobs. And they introduced something called, let's be careful in this corner, they introduced something called the flexible working. What that basically means is people in offices taking the information home, working from home, so your information and my information was at home in somebody's house where it was at potential risk. See, we did run. We're down here now. And it was at potential risk of being overseen by somebody and all that kind of thing. But basically what it boiled down to was that they were slowly, by stealth, because everything was behind closed doors, and that was something else we were protesting against. Everything was behind closed doors. There was no consultation whatsoever. £55 million of public money being borrowed for a white elephant. And it started off, the cost started off about 29 million, I think. It just kept going up and up and up. And we had a huge white elephant at the beginning, at the head of the queue. I'll let you have pictures of it. And people were wearing white elephant masks and stuff like that. It was really quite funny. But part of the protest was against the council leadership, and they would not engage with us at all. We asked for meetings, we asked for replies to emails, and nothing. We got called Trotskyite ne'er-do-well hangers-on, all that kind of thing, you know. What? And why? Why? We're just ordinary people who pay our taxes, who pay our council taxes, and we said very clearly, you've got no right to call us names just because we hold an opinion that you disagree with. But of course, you know, that didn't stop them using the press against us and making sure that, you know, whatever comments were made, that they either completely ignored or they tried to make fun of and things like that. And when the march was successful, they just laughed about it to start with. But when they saw the strength of the march, how many people were there, then they had to sit up and take notice. We're coming down here, and now this is Shelton. Hanley Park's in Shelton, and a lot of people were driving past us, tooting horns of support, and a lot of people clapping us. I mean, we went. I'm not talking crowds and crowds of people here, don't get me wrong, but as they come up and down, they were clapping us and cheering us and stuff like that. And again, we had the public support. Not everybody can come onto a march. I know at least 3 people who would have come on the march but didn't dare come on the march because they're council employees and they worried about the future, because that was something else. People were being oppressed, really. An opinion was being ignored, or actually not so much ignored, but suppressed, because if you said anything, you could almost guarantee that you'd be the next person at the top of the redundancy list. And it's a terrifying prospect, that. I've never been in that position. I've always had a big gob. But, you know, I've never been in that position where I felt my job was at threat if I spoke out. Because I've always thought, well, if I'm going to be true to myself, I've got to speak out. So if I lose my job, I lose my job. It's never been to that, but I know that some people have. And there was there still is to a certain degree, a feeling of fear. I won't, you know. By this time, as you can see, we're kind of halfway down the park now. If you just stop a second and have a look back up, well, you see on the curve there, we were just, you can see that the secondary gate entrance, we were just about there. That was the kind of the length to give. We had to stop, like I say, about every 100 yards, just to keep, you know, allow people to catch up. And there was a feeling of bonhomie, but also we're doing something positive and proactive, and it was actually the feel. Even Alan, wonderful Alan Gerard, even he was smiling, you know. Oh, actually, it's working, you know. And we did feel very strongly that even if nothing else went on from this, we made the local media, we made the local news, we made the BBC. I don't know if we made ITV, because I don't watch ITV very much, but we made national news, and we made national news because we're fed up, and we were and people gave physical action to their feelings, and that was a really important thing. And even those that didn't necessarily agree with everything that our I say publicity, but you know what I mean, we weren't that organised, to be truthful. But even the things that we were saying, if they didn't agree with us, or you can disagree about different things about politics and things like that, for this one particular day, on this one particular subject, we were all in agreement. And yes, we got abused in the social media and things like that, but the vast majority of people who commented on the site, and we had 2,000 members on the site, 2,000 friends of the page within 3 weeks. That's unheard of in this city, you know. And we raised public aspirations, and we got, you know, the apathy which exists not just here but all across the place about politics. People stopped being apathetic and they started voicing opinion, and that's actually continued to this day, to a lesser degree, fair enough, because the election was last year and everything like that. But people are more interested, and the council, albeit a new council, has become more accountable. It's stopped being so secretive, although there's still some. You've got to accept that some things in negotiation are not for public consumption till later on, and that's just a fact of life. You understand that. But when it comes to how they spend our money, and that's the problem, it's how they spend our money. And all we got from the leadership was we're in control. You're not in control at all. You hold office. You're not in control. You don't have power. You hold office. And that office is only yours at our behest. And we took it from you. So how much of in control were you there? So I think the problem is that people generally don't understand that we have the power. And we exercised it that day, and that was a really good thing. I hate using the expression people power, but it was people power, because from then things changed. They didn't change radically. They didn't change with a huge shift in the council's perspective, but they did change, and the council had to engage with this, and local councillors, particularly with the election in 2015 in mind, bear in mind this is 2013 when it began, 2013 when it began, when they realised that this election was coming up and they might lose their flipping seat, then this is when they started to change, and people started to engage with us, not just with me, but with the public generally, and people started to make themselves more available for the public. Now, all councillors hold surgeries, but those surgeries became, well, shall we say, a little more open. It wasn't just about, well, my bins haven't been emptied, you know, so it was all that kind of thing. And just little subtle changes, and it makes a difference. Here now, this is the heart of Shelton, and coming up to the university, and a lot of I think Pakistani Asians live here, but also a huge number of students. And of course it was going to impact on the students, because the university's here, and they've been told, and I know this to be a fact, although the university denied it, they've always been told, ignore Stoke, go to Hanley. I know, because both my children came to Staffs University, and they were told that. So down here there are no speed bumps, and the speed bumps were put in because we're at school, and there's a children's centre and a family centre just around the corner there, and the speed bumps were put in as a safety measure. Because they wanted everybody to go to Hanley from the station and ignore Stoke, they took the speed bumps out. Let's cross the road here, because at this point we'd come down here, this is Station Road, and we did, actually we marshalled at the corner of Station Road there, and we walked along. Train station here. And as we walked along, we marshalled again on the corner, and the police stopped the traffic. Now at this point there was a lot of traffic, you can imagine, and we got masses of support from the people peeping horns and everything like that. It was incredible. It was certainly unexpected. I did think that there'd be people out moaning at us and stuff like that, because you're disrupting traffic on the day and etc. But no, people were incredibly supportive. It was really heartwarming. You go that side. Sorry, my love. And it was just a wonderful day. Going back to my original point about why it took place, why did it happen? It happened because we stopped being moaning. John van der Laarschot, the chief executive, called us typical moaning Stokies. People moan when they feel helpless, when they feel marginalised, when they feel left out of decision making, and all those things were true. But he wouldn't engage with any of us, and he had to go on to the local radio station, BBC Radio Stoke, to clarify one or two things, and he came out with this. Well, that's just typical. Somebody asked a question via tweet or text, and he said, well, that's just typical moaning Stokies, isn't it? And this is the chief executive being paid nearly £250,000 and calling the people who pay his salary typical moaning. Well, thanks a lot, John, and it's a mate of mine. And it's just one thing after another, where we were being abused constantly, and the local media were very clearly with the council on a great many things, but even they had to report the facts as they were, and we didn't let them get away with distorting things. So, down here was quite marvellous down here. Unfortunately, down here, this is when we got one or two who saw the council officer there, were shouting things like, get the council out, get Pervez out, get Labour out, all that kind of thing. Well, that wasn't what the rally was about. We wanted them to listen, to take notice. We did, the idea wasn't to bring the council down, it was to make them change their mind. But you can't, I'm not responsible for other people's opinions. And the local radio was interviewing me at this point. And I said at the time, he heard the people shouting. I said, well, everybody's entitled to their view, and whilst we asked them not to do that, we can't force them. You can't physically tape them up. So they were shouting it. Now we just come under Glebe Street Bridge now. And that, as you can see, is the Civic Centre. And that's just over 20 years old. And they've had, if you want to stand still and take it, it's okay. If they've had £1 million spent on it to put solar panels in. And it looks a bit tired. It's not the world's greatest fantastic building, but it wouldn't take a lot to do it up. It would certainly not take £55 million to do it up. It's right next to the railway station that we just come by. This road in front of it is the main cut through the city, the A500. Just up there, you can see the incinerator. That's the end of the A50. So you've got the M6 and the M1, easy access, right next to the Civic Centre. Why on earth do you want to move the council offices away from the central point of administration? With all these networks, you've even got the bloody canal that we're walking over right now. People could technically come up the canal, and the canal's still very much used. And so why would you want to move? It was a political decision, it was an ideological position, simply because businesses did not want to go to the central business district. Which is sad, because it was a good idea, but people's shopping ideas have changed. People shop online far more now, and they do a lot of things, online banking and all that kind of thing. And all they've done is ignored the current trends, particularly regarding the online boom and social networking and things like that. It's okay, come on. And they've ignored all that and gone with their we know best because we're getting paid a lot of money philosophy. You hear Wayne Rooney's on £300,000 a week. I wouldn't ask him to run the country. You know what I mean? It's a ridiculous notion that because somebody comes from outside and has got qualifications up to their eyeballs, knows what's right for this city. They only know what's right for a city. You only know what's right for a particular city by engaging the public and seeing what they want. And there has been a great deal more of that. The consultation process that's going on at the moment in the Stoke, we'll just take Stoke, which is where we are now. We're in Stoke upon Trent, outside the Glebe pub. And these buildings across the road, by the way, were originally owned by the church and the deacons and what do they call them? The clergy, the trainee clergy. They used to live in these many hundreds of years ago. And that's the Minster. It's the Minster Church of St Peter ad Vincula, which means St Peter in Chains. Beautiful building. Wedgwood's buried in the grounds. I went to the Stanley Matthews funeral there. I was actually a warden there for some years. This is the town hall. It's a beautiful building. You get a better shot across the road, but it's a gorgeous building. This is the King's Hall, and we're turning right into Kingsway now, where the rally ended. So, it took, as you can see, probably, it's taken us 30 minutes to walk. It probably took the rally about an hour, because obviously you've got to stop and start with people. We ended up here. We thanked the police because they'd been excellent, marvellous all the way through. We rallied around the monument. I suppose at the end there were maybe people gathered and we said thank you and things like that. There were probably around about 300 people left to hear the speeches, and we had several speakers. Martin Peat, who was a local businessman, Beryl, who was Beryl was wonderful. She was this retired lady, and she stood up and said, I've never felt so angry in my life. She said, I've got children and grandchildren we've had, and she was fantastic. And she was one who rang up on, she rang up Radio Stoke and spoke to them. So we found out who she was and we asked her to speak. She was fabulous. She was absolutely brilliant. I spoke. Alan Gerard spoke. We had a young lass, because we were called, that was something else that was levelled at us, middle-aged white men. So, and we weren't, it was just that we were the ones who were talking online, you know, that was that. So middle-aged white men. So one young lass turned up to several of our meetings. She was 16 years old, her name was Michelle Wally. And I spoke to Michelle's mum. And I spoke to Michelle and I said, would you mind speaking at the rally? Michelle's never spoken in public before in her life. She was terrified. But her mum said, well, if you feel like it, you know. So she said, I don't know what to write. I said, well, so all you got to do is tell me what you want to say. I'll write it down. If you agree with it, then, you know, we can speak and I'll teach you how to conduct. Because one of the things that I do in my professional life is I teach people better public speaking. And so I did that for it, and she came. And her mum was in tears, not because of what Michelle said, I mean, although that was very powerful, but because Michelle had actually stood up in front of all these people on this very piece of brick here that we were leaning against. She stood up with a megaphone, her hand was shaking, the poor lass, but she made this 2-minute speech, 3-minute speech, whatever it was. And she was, you know, and she was outstanding, she was quite brilliant, a lovely girl. And from then she's gone on to do other things, which is great. So there's positive things.
I met a dame, she was a hipster, yeah, a real gone thing. She was pretty, from New York City. We took down the old free lane, and I hope, well, I just couldn't let her go. Oh, got along, she's a little woman,